please find a place to lay down. Rest your body for a moment. Let your arms and legs relax, soften them, so you can experience the gravity tugging a bit. Then allow your breath to come and go. But notice the sensation comes with breathing. Notice the sensation that comes when you truly let go of the weight of your arms and legs. Left leg, right arm, left arm, even the weight of your head. As you lay here and begin to get a sense of the motions of breathing, gently now, as you rest your arms by your side and move them within a short distance of your hips, begin to lift your arms up towards the sky and let them fall back to rest on the floor. You may elect to move them just a few inches, or you may elect to begin to move your arms way up over your heart or even over your head. Find a way to move that for you is appropriate, not harsh. And as you continue these gentle movements of your arms, can you somehow bring the motions of your breathing into relationship to the movement of your arms? Perhaps as you inhale, lifting your arm bones up, and as you exhale, let them release towards the earth and even rest on the earth. Breath to breath, as best you can. Lifting your arms upward, maybe a few inches or a few feet. Exhaling to bring them back down. And as much as possible, allowing the movement of your arms to be led by the movement of your breathing, rather than forcing your breath to follow your arms. As best you can, continue to move like this for the next few breath cycles. Lifting your arm bones up as far as you wish and letting them come down. Allow your breathing to be part of that process as best you can. During one of your next breath cycles, simply let your arms rest generously on the floor. And please experience the quiet. By contrast, noticing the sensations that come with inactivity as opposed to the activity of your arms just a short time ago. What's happened? And now begin to gently bend your knees, left and right. Make your feet a little wider than your hips. And as you do that, I'll stretch your arms to a place that's not harsh but generous. Palms face up. Notice where your shoulder blades are and where your head is. If you need to make some adjustment to be more comfortable on the floor, please do so. But now with your feet wide, knees bent, arms wide, can you gently begin to sway your knees from side to side? Letting go as you exhale, and perhaps to one side or the other. And as you inhale, bring your knees up. And as you exhale, release to the opposite side. It may well be you want to exhale as you bring your knees up and inhale as your knees rock to the side or some other fashion. But as you can you bring the rhythm of breathing to be the lead dancer in the movement of your knees, side to side. Always being mindful if there's any discomfort or sharpness in a joint or in the low back, never pushing, being respectful, but also being diligent and perceptive. You may want to add in the motion of looking in the opposite direction of your knees. So as your knees move to the right, you look to the left so that your upper back, your cervical spine, also involved in this simple movement. Gently moving these 24 vertebrae from the base of your skull to the top of your sacrum bone, the base of your back. Gentle, thoughtful movements with breathing. And as you move, can you notice the sensations that come? The stretching, hopefully, and always avoiding sharp pain, but some stretching perhaps, a sense of maybe enjoyment of the movement. Whatever's there, simply notice. And please continue for the next 5 or 6 breath cycles or so. Always taking time to move at your pace. Not so much at mine, not so much at your neighbors or somewhere you think you should move, but just paying attention and exploring your capacity to move in a mindful and respectful way. And please do this as you complete your next movement. Bring your knees up to center. And just by contrast now, let go of any and all overt effort. And notice by contrast what shows up. What sensations? What echoes of the effort? And now do this, if you would. Lift both knees up in the sky, and as you lift them upward, can you clasp them with your hands? Embrace your knees firmly but gently, a loving embrace of your knees, laying there on your back. As you hold your knees now, can you begin to melt into this shape, breath to breath? Notice where you resist being held in this shape and where this is comes easily, and just stay there and breathe. And from here, can you begin to make circles in the sky with your knees, clockwise, maybe a half dozen times, and then counterclockwise. But as you make those circles, whether they're great, grand circles or quite delicate, small circles, can you notice the sensations that come across the back of your hips? And can you make those motions be appropriate in a gentle massage for the back of your hips? And please begin to complete those revolutions of your knees, and then gently let your feet rest on the floor for a moment. In the quiet, notice the contrast, effort and non-effort. And now with your feet resting on the floor, knees bent, can you begin to lift your right knee up and clasp that right knee with both hands, firmly but gently. And as you engage that right knee, embrace it, a loving embrace toward that right shoulder. And if it's appropriate for you, if there's no harshness in your low back especially, begin to extend your left leg long and flat and press it into the earth. And just linger here for a few breath cycles. A firm but generous embrace, especially as you exhale, drawing that knee in toward the right shoulder. And as you inhale, gently, thoughtfully pressing that left leg downward into the earth. Another breath or two, and as you complete those breaths, simply release and trade legs. Left knee drawn in, firmly but gently toward the left shoulder. The right foot on the floor, if it's appropriate, that right leg long and flat on the floor. And linger here, another few breath cycles. Each exhale, drawing that left knee inward, holding it. A firm but gentle, a loving embrace. And with each inhale, pressing that right leg into the floor, or the right foot into the floor. And with one of your exhales, let that effort go and rest with both knees bent, both feet flat on the floor, arms by your side, and just let go. By contrast, noticing the lack of effort in contrast to the effort you just made. And please do this now. With your knees bent, gently roll onto your side and push yourself up to all fours. We call table pose. Hands at shoulder width, directly below your shoulders, knees slightly behind your hips, hip width apart, toes pointed back, finding any modification. If this is hard on your knees, putting a blanket below your knees. If it's hard on your wrists, placing a blanket, folded blanket below the heels of your hands, but finding that place for you that's steady in this table pose. And from here, this cat-cow motion, this gentle rounding your back as you release your tailbone and your head towards the earth. Then a softening of your heart and belly towards the earth as you lift your ears and tailbone upward, to and fro. Cat-cow motions. And as you work through these motions, can you do this? Begin to add an exhale to those times that you round your back. And draw your tailbone down, release your head. And can you soften your belly and lift your tailbone and ears as you let the breath come in on an inhale. Breath to breath, moving through this cat-cow motion. If it's difficult to pay attention to breathing in this way, perhaps breathe in another way that somehow leads this movement, this cat-cow movement. And if it's difficult all the way around, simply make the movements and don't notice the breath. Find your way of exploring this simple movement, moving these 24 vertebrae from your tailbone to the base of your skull, breath to breath, moment to moment. And as you continue this process, as an option, only as an option, if it feels appropriate to you, you might want to, as you begin to soften your belly, lift your ears and tailbone, to lift an arm and or an opposite leg. And as you complete that cycle, perhaps moving to the opposite arm and or leg. Breath to breath. Rising as you arm and leg and ears and tailbone, softening the heart as you inhale, and rounding your back and drawing that elbow, knee, and or knee inward as you exhale. Find your way, rather than doing it the right way and to master some sort of physical effort. Can you find a way to explore movement with breath through this cat-cow motion in your own unique and wonderful way? Being respectful, moving with discipline, but not with harshness. And as you complete another breath cycle or so, come back to that neutral place in this table pose, and as you're ready, gently bring your knees a bit wider, bring your big toes towards each other, and begin to seat back to what we call pose of the child, resting elbows on the floor and letting your hips rest back. Only so far as there's no harshness, of course, or sharpness, especially in knees as you come back to this pose of the child. Resting your forehead on stacked fists or hands or on your mat or floor. Just let go, hips sinking back, heart forward, breath moving to and fro. And notice the quiet between the effort you made and your next postures. And please do this now. Come back to table pose and please lay back on your back. And as you lay back on your back, can you bend your knees and rest your feet flat on the floor about hip width apart? Rest your hands either by your hips, outstretched wide, or even over your head, but laying on the floor, in whatever way for you feels most appropriate and not harsh. And once you do that, with your feet resting parallel to each other about hip width, begin to gently lift your hips up off the floor. Maybe just the effort of lifting and nothing comes up, that's fine. Or maybe up an inch or 5 inches or a foot. But bring your hips up to some degree, some 80% of their range to rise up. Never forcing, but finding a way to move those hips upward. Feet flat on the floor, shoulders resting on the floor, arms resting on the floor. Another breath or two, and as you complete those breath cycles, gently rest your hips back on the floor. You can rest for a moment. And once again, if you need to adjust the location of your feet, feet hip width, feet parallel to your hips, knees bent about 90 degrees or so. Begin to lift your hips up. Even if it's just ever so slightly an effort, they may not even come up off the floor, but find that way of adding 80 or 90% of your effort to that movement, or they may come up quite a distance, but bring them up in a way that's not harsh, that keeps your shoulder blades and arms resting on the floor, your feet firmly planted on the floor, and linger for a few more breath cycles. Hips rising up, heart even rising up, breath to breath. And with an exhale, let your hips rest on the floor. And notice the consequences of these simple movements. And now, once again, with your hips resting on the floor, knees bent, knees now rising up, arms outstretched somewhere by your hips, perhaps wider. As your knees rise up into the sky, bring your knees and ankles together and slowly, thoughtfully begin to move them to the right. Maybe just an inch, or maybe farther, maybe 2 inches, or 5, or 10. Again, be very respectful of the sensations that might be sharp, especially low back. Come up to center, knees together, ankles together, and slowly move, even if it's half an inch, lingering for a moment. But if it's even a foot and a half, just move it for you in an appropriate way. Explore this movement. And can you move back and forth very slowly, even 3 or 4 breath cycles on each side, to whatever extent you can. Knees drawn up to the sky, or even closer to your heart if that's helpful. Gently moving, knees side to side, as an exploration, not as a physical feat to prove something. And then gently coming to center, once you've completed those breath cycles, to the best of your capacity. Rest your feet on the floor, and rest quietly for a few moments. And please now do this. Roll onto your belly. And as you roll to your belly, rest your head in a way that it's not harsh for your neck, maybe on the side of your cheek or on your forehead or whatever for you feels appropriate. Arms resting, palm face up by your side. Legs long. And from here, gently now, begin to lift your right leg. Gently, maybe an inch or 2. If it feels appropriate, a bit further. And even begin to lift your shoulders a bit. And then relax and let everything go. And then the second leg, your right leg, begin to slowly lift that right leg as you lift your shoulders. Perhaps lift your ears, not your chin so much as your ears, lifting up. And then gently releasing. And as you release now, press the top of your feet, your knees, top of your legs into the floor, As you slide your tailbone towards your heels, begin to gently lift your shoulders and ears, not so much your chin, but your ears and shoulders, as your heart begins to slide forward a bit. And then let go and rest for a short time. And now begin to lift once again that left leg and that right leg. And it may be that the legs don't move. Maybe they just intend to move. But lift whatever distance they can. It could be 2 feet in the air. It could be not at all, but find that effort to do so. And then even now begin to lift your shoulders and even begin to lift the full length of your arms. Even as they rest at your side, begin to lift them or make that effort. And even begin to slide your heart forward as your ears rise up. Another breath or two, and then let go. Let all that effort go, and rest for a moment. As you're ready now, one last time, begin to lift a leg and your second leg, a shoulder, a second shoulder, even the full length of both arms. As they rest by your side, beginning to lift them upward and offer your heart forward, ears rising up even. The limbs may not actually move very far, but make the effort. It's not harsh, thoughtful investigation. Another breath or two as you're ready. Gently release all that effort. And once you release that effort, gently, quietly rest. And notice the echoes of this effort. And from here, gently roll onto your back. And as you roll onto your back, bend your knees, left and right. Lift knees up in the sky and embrace your knees again. Firmly but gently, a loving embrace of the knees by your hands. And once you hold those knees, gently rock side to side. Hips and shoulder blades and kidneys, even the back of your head, gently massaged by this gentle rocking side to side. And from here, please let all that effort go. And let your legs either be long and flat on the floor if it feels appropriate to keep them bent, whatever it is for you to lay back in this, we call Shavasana, this quiet time at the end of this yoga practice. Please linger here for a few more breath cycles.